We're going to get started, guys. Madam Mayor, we are live and recording. You can begin the meeting whenever you wish. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Welcome everyone to our special council meeting. Today is April 15th, or a regular council meeting. Our regular council meeting. Before we begin, I just want to remind everybody in the gallery that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the Township's YouTube channel. We do have participants who are joining us from Zoom as well as from within the chambers. Council, of course, as is always the case, if you wish to speak on a matter, please raise your hand and I will call on you at the appropriate time. We'll start with calling the roll, starting with Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Present.
Councillor Watt.
Present.
Councillor Johnston.
Present.
We have Councillor Burfort.
Present.
Hello. We have a number of staff joining us. I won't go through and do introductions all the way down the bench today. But with quorum of council in attendance, I will call the meeting to order, beginning with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the lands which are part of the 1818 Treaty 20 and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe bands of the Great Ojibwe Nation. We offer our gratitude to the Ojibwe for their care and knowledge of the lands on which we work, live, and enjoy. May we honor and respect their teaching and our treaty obligations as we grow together. And then we'll just pause for a moment of silent reflection. Of course, the agenda was circulated in advance of today's meeting. Council has had an opportunity to review that. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest?
No, I do have one, 10.5.
Okay. And for the, can you state the reason on that item, please, for the record?
Yeah, the closure of a road and my daughter is involved in it.
Okay. All right, and you'll be recusing yourself from that discussion at the appropriate time. And Madam Clerk, we do have the paperwork on file. We do. Thank you very much. So with that in mind, is there any other disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing nothing further, could we just get a motion to approve the agenda, please? Deputy Mayor Nelson, seconded by Councillor Report, all in favor, and that motion carries. On to item number 6, adoption of the minutes and business arising from the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes, both from March 18th, one being a special meeting, the other one being a regular council meeting. Just looking for a motion to receive and approve those. Councillor Johnston, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. All in favor? And that motion carries. We do have 5 items on consent. Is there any item that council would like to pull for discussion at a later point in the agenda? Seeing nothing, then just looking for a motion to receive that. Councillor Watt, seconded by Councillor Report, all in favor. And that motion carries. Okay, on to delegations, petitions, presentations, or public meetings. We do have Mr. Richard Taylor to make a presentation of a petition. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
Welcome. And just while you're getting set up there, sir, the delegation is 5 to maybe 10 minutes. So we'll ask that you be notable of the time, and then the council can ask any questions that you may have subsequent to that.
Well, I appreciate the extra time, as most municipalities limit us to either 5 or 7 minutes. So thank you for that. And thank you for the opportunity to make this delegation as referenced in item 8.1. I'm here to speak on behalf of my clients. And that's the main editors is present and Melanie Hammond, I'll provide some background context. The subject matter is to address a petition regarding Demers Road and consent files B 104-24 and B 105-24. As indicated, council members are well aware that my clients have made applications associated with the creation of 2 lots, which abut Demers Road. As a component of the process, Wayne Edwards proceeded with what's called a preliminary severance review that involves both township and county representatives in reference to the assessment of matters associated with the proposed consents. Mr. Edwards had significant expense and on the recommendation of township representatives proceeded to obtain an environmental assessment report as it would relate to potential impact that might be presented by the proposed creation of the 2 lots. That report was obtained by him, and thereafter he received a communication from the township that in fact there could be a difficulty associated with matters in reference to the status of Douro Road. As a component of the process, Mr. Edwards then retained me to address matters. That was after his environmental report was done. It was also after township and county staff had evaluated the severance proposals on a preliminary basis. It seems to be accepted that the parcels are eligible for consent. We believe that in fact, there are no other extraneous issues save and except the status of Demers Road. And in that context, we then proceeded to engage in a second preliminary assessment review. That preliminary assessment review was to determine what the concerns were by municipal staff, both township and county, associated with the proposed consents. It was identified that there was a section in the Peterborough County official plan, which forms part of at least the township of Douro-Dummer forms part of that county official plan. And specifically, I'm going to identify the wording that appears in that plan that appeared to be problematic. The specific provision indicated that new development was contemplated to include new severances. Is not to be permitted if it is not accessible by a public road maintained year-round. That's the key language that exists in the official plan that was of concern to both the township and the county. Obviously, that introduced a consideration as to the status of Demers Road. As a component of my review, we retained an engineer to assess the conditions in reference to Demers Road. And that report was provided to both the township and the county and was prepared by MJ Davenport and Associates. That was submitted to both the township and the county associated with the present condition of the road. That was the one aspect of the review. The other aspect of the review undertook an evaluation as to the history of the road all the way back to Mr. Demers, obviously named Demers Road, and his son subsequent to that, and events that I would characterize produced, it would appear, an evaluation from the township's perspective in or around 1990 through to about 1999. And from the standpoint of the assessment that was undertaken throughout that period, it was quite clearly identified by township staff throughout that period that there was a concern as to whether or not the actions or the conduct of the municipality had ensued to the point where Demers Road had in fact been assumed into the public road system. That's pretty clear from the history. That hasn't been disclosed, however, by the township. Throughout the entire process, we've asked for openness and transparency as it would relate to matters, including changes to your official plan. Now, I've had occasion to have a number of hearings involving the old township of Dummer and the township of Douro-Dummer from the standpoint of your own official plan. And there have been a number of changes to the wording associated with this particular requirement. The county official plan and the wording that I just referenced is an old plan. It's not your fault that the new plan for the county hasn't been adopted, but the reality is it's an old plan. And there are a number of considerations as it would pertain to the status of Demers Road that you should be aware of. It would appear that the information suggests that you have sustained public expenditures on this particular road in various aspects, either in reference to capital improvements, modest, or maintenance. In 2015, for example, you undertook tree clearing, which I think is quite prudent from the standpoint of risk assessment and potential liability as it would pertain to Demers Road. We dealt with, and it's been reflected in a report that was submitted to you, I think back on February 18th. We dealt with both the township and the county associated with matters dealing with Demers Road. There's no doubt that there's been a schizophrenic history. When I say a schizophrenic history, the township has exhibited multiple personalities, I might indicate, as it would relate to Demers Road. The position that was advanced by both township staff and county staff was the following: Demers Road is a private road. We came to the conclusion that that particular submission could not be accepted on the basis of the evidence that was collected. Then there was a communication that this was an unopened road ordinance. It's not an unopened road. Then there was a communication that in fact the municipality had not assumed the road because it hadn't passed a bylaw and registered it on title. That's one aspect of assumption. But if you go to the Bible associated with roads like Rusty Russell on roads, you clearly come to the conclusion that it's not just the registration of a bylaw that deals with assumption of a road. It can deal with the conduct of the municipality, it can deal with the expenditures that have been undertaken, it can deal with the actions associated with maintenance. So you have a problem. I made a determination that we're not going to proceed with an official plan amendment. Why did I do that? Well, we proceed to the Interior Land Tribunal, which we can do. We have a good probability of success. Why do we have a good probability of success? Because the wording that's found in the existing old official plan is ambiguous. This is not my document. It's not my client's document. It's your document, effectively yours in the county. And there's several principles of law that are applicable. When there's any such ambiguity, you interpret it against the author, because the author can change the document at any point in time to clarify it. In our discussions with Mr. Mudd, the director of the county, he quite candidly admitted, well, assessing in retrospect, perhaps the wording could be clearer. And that's where you get into the next aspect of consideration. And that's the history of the language and the changes that have been made associated with the Dummer official plan, the Township of Douro-Dummer official plan, and the county official plan. And if you review all of those particular changes that have been made, you come to the conclusion that there was a clear and specific obligation associated with having frontage onto a public municipally maintained road year-round, as opposed to the wording that exists in your present official plan. Now, we submitted as part of the application process that this is a public road. And Ms. Coulter, in her report to you, February 18th, provided a reference to a letter back in April of 2024, where it was clearly acknowledged. This is the township road. There has been a lot of attempts to characterize it on the part of the municipal staff as something other than a municipal road. But the reality is, it's a township road. There's all sorts of corroborating evidence, including evidence from other surveyors, more than one, that have characterized and listed this as a township road. Surveyors don't do that unless they undertake their own due diligence and evaluation, because it invites liability on their part arising from a misrepresentation.
Mr. Taylor, you
Yep.
are coming up on 10 minutes, sir.
Okay. So we're led to a situation where the people who reside along Demers Road have presented a petition. And that petition acknowledges the recognition that was made in writing that this is a township road. It also requests consideration in terms of the township assuming full maintenance obligations in reference to the road. We are here to request that the township engage with us. And it can even be on a without prejudice basis. That means that any discussion, representations, comments and all that cannot be used in terms of subsequent proceedings, either at the OLT or otherwise. We're here to request you to engage in that particular process, to discuss about the status of Demers Road. In 2015, you removed trees. That's proven. You need to remove trees again. Whether you do anything or not, from the standpoint of dealing with my client's applications for severance, you've got a liability problem, you've got a risk management problem. So we're inviting you to participate in the discussions with those people who have signed that petition to resolve matters associated with Demers Road. Subject to any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Taylor. Council, any questions of our delegate? Seeing no questions specifically? If there's no questions at this point, Mr. Taylor, you're welcome to have a seat. I have a couple of questions of staff, but I don't know if council has a question of staff on delegation. Seeing nothing there. And I imagine this is through the clerk. I know we have a policy for the township to assume the road. Has this policy been shared with the delegates?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would have to go through the planning notes for this file, to be sure, but I have not shared it with them in light of the petition list.
Thank you very much. Council, what would you like to do with the delegation? Councilor Johnson?
I'm gonna make a motion that we defer this till we get more clarification, more information regarding the comments that were brought forward. There's some news up there that at the time of discussing it wasn't brought forward, so I think we need to look at it again and get some more information from our township people.
Okay, so we have a motion to defer any specific information that staff need in general that you're looking for,
Well,
Councilor?
we'll need a second first.
I'm just looking for clarification on the motion.
Basically what I want them to do is to clear this unopened road, that the maintenance that we have done in the past. Because I know other ones that we have done and provided a bit of gravel in that, and they said, no, we can't do that. So therefore, I want to know what went on here, why we proceeded to do that work.
Does anyone want to second that motion to defer? Councilor Watt? Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Call for the vote. All in favor? And the motion carries. Gentlemen. Moving on to item number 9 on the agenda. We have our public comment period, and it's my understanding we do have one registered speaker who registered for today's meeting, and that's Nate Jackson with the Rice Lake Snowdrift. Mr. Jackson, you sir only have 5 minutes for your delegation of the type of nature it is.
Mayor, councilors.
Just push the blue talk button. I think there you go.
So my name is Nate Jackson. I'm speaking today in opposition to 10.5 on the agenda. I'm the club president of the Rice Lake Snowdrifters. We're one of 200 clubs in Ontario that maintain the 30,000 kilometers of snowmobile trails that access public and private lands. We are from Rice Lake up to Stony Lake. That's our territory. And our Trail 569 is a popular trail that runs up through this rural allowance in 10.5. Our club in the past decades have spent countless volunteer hours and tens of thousands of dollars in fuel and machinery costs to maintain this road allowance. And that created the trail that is today. It's used by thousands of snowmobilers, locals, and visitors to the area. We'd like to just reinforce to council the importance of maintaining this legacy, this public access that we've had here for decades, and to consider the impacts on local snowmobilers and also snowmobilers that come and visit the area. Thanks.
That's awfully brief. Before you run away, Mr. Jackson,
Yeah.
just in case there's any questions from council of the delegation? Oh, we can't ask questions on this, sir. Please take your seat now, sir. I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so moving down the agenda onto staff reports, we have item 10.1, report and capital project status. Any questions, council, staff on that report? Then just looking for a motion to receive.
Absolutely.
Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilor Johnston, all in favor. That motion carries, thank you. Item 10.2, liquor license renewal, for our recreation facilities, and Mr. Mood, the floor is yours.
I'm going to start out with the recommendation that we have for this report. The recommendation is that the report recreation facilities 2025-02 dated April 15th, 2025 regarding the liquor license renewal be received, and that council forfeits the renewal of the township's liquor license and proceeds with option 2 of the alternate solutions for alcohol sales. So this report is, we're bringing this forward because our liquor license is up for renewal for April 30th. It is due to be renewed. We're looking into, over the years, we've had a decrease in alcohol sales events. And we're also looking into the township's liabilities as well as staff liabilities as signers on this alcohol document. So this was just to give you an overview of what those liabilities and risks are for the township and for staff. It also gives you an overview of the last 3 years of events that we've had. And then it also gives you an analysis of some options going forward. We're not looking to cut alcohol out of any of our facilities or events. We're just looking to provide alternate solutions for the township by limiting liability risks for the township and staff going forward. And as you can see in some of the analysis here, over the last 3 years, we had 7 events in 2022, another 7 in 2023, and 11, and we had 11 in 2024. Of those, the revenues that we brought in, we've had expenditures, and we only, on average, over those 3 years, it's been about $1,100 in profits. It's really not that much for assuming all the risks and liabilities for the township and for staff. So it's our recommendation to forego this liquor license and proceed with one of the alternate options that we provided. Staff is recommending option 2, which would allow users of the facilities to apply for their own SOP, special occasion permit, for their event, whether it be for just allowing their guests to have alcohol and or for resale. I know over the years, we've had that request from our users to be able to run their own bars. But at the time, we weren't able to allow our users to do so. It's just a high level overview, but I'd be happy to answer any of the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mood, Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Thanks, Mayor. Mike, thanks for your report. I have a couple of questions actually, and it's pertaining to, if we give up our license for these facilities, or I presume it covers Warsaw and Douro as both. If we give this up and we move to a special occasion permit, we're the ones with the deep pockets. I'll put it that way. We're the ones with the big insurance policies. Well, how does that affect the liquor control board of giving special permits when I just know in the past, when we were the Optimist Club, we would take out a special permit for the building and run that special permit, but I think if I'm correct, there was always a license, another license that was already a licensed establishment on the property, which was the arena. And my question is surrounding that, is there going to be a no from them giving a special permit when there's no other liquor license established on the property? That's my question, I guess, for that. And the next thing is, my next question on that is, when it's a special permit license, we never purchased liquor through the township for when we had random events for the Optimist Club. So and we brought our own liquor into them events. Just how does that work as far as them okaying a special permit? Because if somebody was having a wedding, say, at the Douro Arena or the Horse Arena, they wouldn't be looking to the arena or to the township to bring any booze in, so they would be bringing. Is it possible that it could become a free-for-all with special user groups and still, I know they've signed off, but could it be a free-fall with the amount of liquor that's going to be there? That's my questions.
Yeah, through the mayor to deputy mayor. There's a couple of good questions there for sure. I do know that other municipalities operate this way and they do not have a liquor license and they're allowed to have special occasion permits issued for their facilities. There is a number of different types and avenues you have to go down. One is if it's going to be for resale or just you're supplying it to your guests. And that's if it's private events. And then there's other avenues such as public events, which they would have to have the township do a significant event resolution to allow for that to happen. So each one has different criteria to adhere to. But anytime you apply for a special occasion permit, you're only allowed to have the alcohol on site that you've purchased under that specific SOP. Another good thing is with the SOPs, hypothetically, if we run an event, we don't have to identify to the alcohol and gaming that we're having an event. So we don't get the inspections on a regular basis, but when you apply for an event, the alcohol inspectors, they have the list of the dates and events. So they will be coming around to make sure that our event users are in compliance. So there is that security side of things. I do know that like all these, I know we have the deeper pockets, but we still need to investigate exactly, and we'll come back to council on how each option is going to be laid out, choosing depending on which option council goes with. But they will be required to have their own event insurance. Depending on the nature of the event, they'll be required to potentially have security. There's a number of items that will be in place, but what those details are right now, I can't speak for it, but that would all be brought back to council to make a decision on. And I think the CAO wanted to do this.
Just as I understand, special occasion permits in community-based facilities, so we do not require to hold a master license so that community groups can apply for a special occasion permit. We need to be supportive, and I'm not suggesting, I think what we're suggesting is that we would support community-based organizations and or a single provider that isn't the municipality having or holding a license for events. The risk that we gain is that, you know, and some of the risks that we have is related to being a licensed event is that we don't, you know, as demonstrated sort of through the numbers, you know, when you have 7 to 11 events a year and we talked about how much it costs to operate those events, those are just straight direct staff costs related to holding the events. It doesn't include any of the administrative costs associated with making sure that, you know, going through the process, scheduling the staff, buying the alcohol, making sure it's on site. And we have some liability, certainly related to, you know, who serves it. You know, finding the right staff to be able to do that work at a very limited number of times a year is becoming more and more challenging. Along with when we purchase alcohol and we have the event, when it doesn't happen, it gets stored. That is an ongoing liability for shrinkage and all these other elements. Plus, if we open bottles of wine and we don't serve a full bottle, especially other sort of losses that we make. So the financial model for the amount of revenues that it puts into the coffers of the municipality versus the amount of liability that we take as the sort of organization with the deepest pockets is challenging to make a good cogent argument as to why we should continue to do this. That's really why we've come to council today, to get your feedback as to how you want us to proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Johnston?
Yeah.
And Councillor Reward, was your hand up also? No,
Um,
just Q and A. Thank you.
I do know that, like our Knights of Columbus have a license over in the hall. And we run the things, we carry our own insurance and we do our thing. So everything we do with our license. I know that, on July, for the 2000 year that we're having a celebration in Douro, I gotta find out whereabouts that's gonna be, because they're definitely gonna have alcohol. And, I'm not sure if it's gonna be at the arena, which I kind of think it might be. But I don't know if they contact you or not. Is it at the arena, do you know?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councilor Johnson.
Is that the arena?
Yes, it is at the arena. It
Okay.
is for July 5th and 6th.
That's right.
We are bringing this now so we can get ahead of that. Iron out a solution. We can even work with service groups such as the Knights, if they want to apply for a special occasion permit for that event, or say our youth groups like Douro-Dummer Hockey's or Lions. We were willing to work with other organizations as well in the township to promote them to make revenue for fundraisers and stuff like that. So we just kind of want the direction, because our license is up for renewal for April 30th. If we don't do the renewal process before that, then we have to go through the full application process, which takes more time and resources to go through. So basically, the options that we're proposing to you is to get a sense of direction that council wants to do. Put the work into that option and bring something back to you well before any of those events happen.
Thank you, Chair, Madam Mayor. Have we had any chats with groups or people about this kind of thing? When somebody's planning a wedding, for instance, like I know, they've got a lot on their plate, stuff like that, and they think, you know what, hey, the township's gonna look after this, the liquor thing, the license, the whole event, and again, it's just one thing off their plate. Do you see that as maybe deterring people from coming to us, or I know it's a catch-22 question, it's not really answerable, but I just thought maybe if that's a feedback on, you know, hey, you know what, I'd rather you guys just look after it and that's it.
Through the mayor, to Councilor Watt. Yeah, you're gonna get it both ways, essentially. I do know that we've had requests to run their own bar. They've wanted to run their own bar, like a number of occasions, especially for weddings. I know they want to run their own bar to help recover some costs, right? You're also gonna get some probably work Christmas parties that they really probably don't want to be bothered by that. But in the sense that last year, we only had 2 Christmas parties versus previous years, like, so that's a decline. I'm not sure what the rhyme or reason is for that, but so right now in 2025, this will affect 2 events that we have on the books, and it is the July 5th and 6th. And then our next event that we have for a bar is not until November 15th. Like, not saying we couldn't have any inquiries from now till then, but like, that's a long time to have alcohol sitting, storing, and obviously you have waste from the wine.
All right, thank you. And my final question, is the township, if something come up for an event that was township event, not a wedding, not anything else, but an actual township event, and we want to run something, are we eligible still to get a special occasion permit through the township?
That is correct. We can still do one-off events as required. So it also helps limit our liabilities and risks.
Any other questions, Deputy Mayor?
Just one more follow-up on that, thank you, through Madam. Sorry, Madam Mayor. Mike, if we're taking our special occasion license out, and that would be obviously you as the manager doing that, taking that. Does that limit your, does that put the responsibility on you personally for taking that license, liquor license out?
Through the mayor to deputy mayor, yeah, like as. Anytime you get a license, whether it's a special occasion permit or a full-on license, we had a catering endorsed license. It requires 2 signers, one, both on behalf of the township. So whoever is the signer can actually be held personally liable in the event that the township's in violations or there's an incident. We can be civilly sued as signers. We don't have to be at the event at all. So that's part of some of the reducing the risks on the staff and the township.
Thanks for that, Mike.
Any other questions from council? I've got a couple, Mike, if you don't mind. So you mentioned the 2 events that are happening this summer, or this year rather. I'm really struggling with the timing, to be honest, of when this report's coming to us. And I know we didn't have a meeting the 1st of April and there may have been intention to bring that sooner. Has there been any sort of conversation with the those who have already booked events? Because you're saying that you want to get ahead of this, but I feel like we're already a year behind because people are planning events a year ahead and maybe the facility's not booked yet, but there's, you know, we're taking deposits from people. Like, so how are we going to mitigate that? What's your plan for that?
We've, yes, our staff have communicated that to the Irish settlement, the anniversary people. They are aware of that. They know that we want to work with them and try to make everything go as smoothly for them. And we feel that we can accomplish that. And then our next event is not till November, is the Cattlemen Association. And I'm not sure if the admin staff have reached out to them as of yet, but we will do so as we get an answer in the direction of how we're going to do it.
Okay, and then the license renewal itself that expires, or the license that expires on April 30th, the renewal agreement is for what period of time?
It would be for additional 4 years.
Do we have the option to renew for only a year and revisit this?
I am not aware of that. I can look into that though. I know it is a fixed rate for 4 years.
Sure, and this is where I say, like, we're behind the ball because you're gonna look into it, but council needs to make a decision pretty much this evening in order to move forward or not, right? And I feel like we just don't have enough information. You know, and you know, other municipalities, it seems that the trend is they're getting out of it. I understand the risk and the liability and, you know, even liability on staff. But I don't buy the argument that, you know, we only have 7 events and we only make $1,000 because if that was the business model that we have in place as government wouldn't exist because government exists when there isn't a business model, right? When it doesn't make sense for businesses to get, private companies would run transit if they could, right? And make a buck off of it. The government picks up that bill. So there's a lot of information that you're proposing and you're looking for direction at this point in time. And CEO Davis, I recognize you had said, like, we're just looking for it so we can go back and bring options. But I don't know what options that you're even looking at are viable as options. And I don't know if we have that information. So is there anywhere that, like, of all of the options besides like option 2 as a whole, so I'll pull up that report again. What does that look like if the recommendation is option 2, what does that look like for us from an implementation standpoint, or for more importantly, from a user's standpoint, who want to use our facilities? They're just going out and getting their own SOPs for the events. We don't need to do a provincially or municipally significant event for that to happen, or how does that work?
That all depends on which event it is, like they all have different criteria. We're gonna have a system in place for requirements for the people that would like to get an SOP. So they would be required to do X amount of things in order to have that SOP in their facilities. And that would be making sure they have insurance, they do the proper channels for the SOP in which they're trying to apply for. It's just having all that in place for them to be successful in their applications. So we will have all of that developed for them to help them get through that process and to identify which ones will be successful and which ones will not be.
So if they have their own insurance, 2 questions on that. Can we offer them a rider on our insurance? I know some organizations will do that. So is that a yes?
Yep.
Yeah. And secondly, assuming that they have, whether it's a rider on our insurance or their own separate insurance, if something goes wrong, is the municipality still exposed from a liability perspective? Because if we're doing this just to save $1,000, exposure is exposure and it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Is that correct?
To the mayor, like, there's always gonna be a risk having anything in our facilities, whether it's alcohol related or non-alcohol related, so we're gonna have those risks regardless. It's just us not having to go through the process of purchasing, supply, making sure that we have properly trained people in place to serve the alcohol on the township's behalf. It's taking all that side of things out of it for us and putting it more on the licensee holder who have, when they apply for it, they have strict rules that they have to adhere to be in accordance with their SOP. So it's putting it more on them. We'll always have a portion of the risk, but it's reducing it for us and for staff that's on it.
Right, I hear you. I don't know if I buy it, because I know we talk about our roads, joint and several liability, and, if we're 1% responsible, we're gonna put 99% of the bill. So I appreciate your answers, however. Any other questions from council before we look for a motion of something from anyone? No more questions. Council, what would you like to do with this one? We don't have time to defer. Who wants to take us down to motion?
Well, I'm just gonna make
Councilor?
a comment, like, the thing is, we want to get out of the business of running bars, you want to put it that way. And that's all fine, but it's going to continue on. So as long as we can get special occasion licenses, I do know that over the years, we've done that many times. And the township, when we used to do it back years ago, the township then requested we used to run dances over in Douro arena. And the township would then said that we had to have security, so we had to freaking hire the police to come and stand and watch the video dance. At an expense that all of a sudden we didn't make much money because we had to have security. So I'm just wondering, when you get the special occasion license, is that one of the things that they have on their list, that you have to have your own security, or is that put on by the township? Do you know that? I think.
I'll be the condition of the
Of the township. So the other things I want to find out a little bit, because I mean, we're going to cut turkey that we don't have a license in our arenas and wherever. Like even upstairs, like we're having a do coming up here in a couple of weeks. And we provide the alcohol and just give it out to the people free. And I don't know, it's not gonna kind of stop that. So that there's things that there's a lot of answers that been around this for years, and I don't know what they are.
Councillor Watt has a question, do you want
No, go ahead.
to? Okay, Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Hugh Member. Is it possible to still renew the license? Because it sounds like everybody in council has a lot of questions and so on and so forth. We're not really sure where it goes. Still get our license for the next year, and maybe we can only get it for a year, so let's start while we have that license, implementing this program to get users to do their own SOPs, so take us off luck and see how it goes and give us more time to delve into the questions that have come up here.
Who wants to answer that?
Through the mayor to Councillor Watt, yes, that is, I think that's a potentially prudent option. I think if we renew the license, certainly when you renew a license or a liquor license, the term is 4 years, but nothing says that you have to hold the license for those 4 years. We can always, we may have to, there may be expense to the renewal fee that we may have to sacrifice some cost to it, but I think that buys us some time to develop an alternative model. And move in the direction of, SOPs or whatever that would look like. And then that would ensure that the facility remains licensed for incidents right now where we're unsure of how that's gonna work. But, as long as we have some direction that moves us towards the direction of, or I think what the manager is asking is that we move towards the direction of not, managing our own bar for a series of reasons that maybe it's most prudent if we renew the license and we work towards over the next 6 months, bringing back a report with options that are better fleshed out for council to make a decision going forward.
Thank you, CEO Davis. Any other questions? I want to get a motion here tonight. Councillor Johnson.
I've got one question to the chair there. Now with this due we're having in July, they, even though if we have a bracket insurance for I don't know if the township would be kind of spearhead, there's quite an involvement going on here, and they're expecting big crowds. And I don't know if it would be under the umbrella of the township, or they still have to take a special occasion license, even though the township would, as a whole, would have that general license if we continue on. Would they still have to take out a special occasion license?
For the mayor to Councilor Johnson, well, it depends if we have our license and we choose to operate it that way, then they wouldn't have to apply for a special occasion permit. It's only if in the event that
We don't.
we are making.
Through the mayor to Councilor Johnson, I think the premise would be if we renew our license. And we commit to work with these organizations. So for the July 5th and 6th dates, I think the reality would be is if the request of that organization is that we maintain the license and provide the staff and all those things, then whatever, sold at that event then should be considered a municipal revenue. However, if we're working with that organization and they're comfortable getting their own SOP and we support them in that endeavor, and they provide the staffing and all the resources that are required, that's a fundraising opportunity for them. I don't think we would stand in the way of that. That makes sense.
But so they wouldn't have to get another license. They could use that license, but manage. I meet with them tonight, so I just some of these questions I got to kind of find out. Wait, so you're saying that they could manage and run the bar, or?
So what I'm suggesting, Councilor Johnson, is that if we go ahead and renew the license, which is, I believe that's the direction that council is leading tonight. And they want us to operate the bar under our license, then, you know, the revenues would be municipal revenues. If they would like to go down the path in partnership, if we hold the license, but we're willing to work with them to get their own SOP, or they can get their own SOP, they manage the process and the bar themselves, then the revenues would be them. Effectively, if we're gonna take all the liability and have the license and provide the operations, then we should reap the rewards. Is really what I'm trying to get to. But if they want to take some of the risk liability and do some of the legwork, then I think really what we're saying here by virtue of this report is that we're willing to allow that to happen so that other organizations in the community can make money as well.
My concern is that in this report that you put together, Mike, is that you did say that your workers don't even want to be involved now, serving alcohol. They've been kind of told that, you know, they're liable, so that now you're saying that you don't even have manpower to run one.
Through the mayor, no, that's not exactly correct. It's the current signers on behalf of the township no longer want to be signers on behalf of the township. Sign the legal liabilities and potentials of risks for them.
Okay, council, we've had lots of questions. I'll entertain a motion now. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Chair, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we continue with the license. We apply for it and renew the license. And in the next 6 to 12 months, we come back with a solid plan on how we're going to implement organizations, people, general public to acquire their own SOP, and that we will only use our license in the event that something comes up that they can't get their own, but let's push towards going with their own SOP. If that makes sense.
Councillor, it does make sense. Perhaps just a bit of clarification. An SOP is one of many options that might be available to some of them. So, you know, such as some of the ones that are in the report, like collaborations with local wineries, breweries,
Okay.
catering, different types. So, perhaps if you keep it a little bit broader, it would give some of those participating groups more options as well.
SOPs and participating groups.
Or just other alcohol sales options.
Okay.
Perhaps.
like- Yes, the options listed in
In the report.
the report.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, you seconding that?
Second that.
Any discussion on the motion, Deputy Mayor?
Just wondering if the,
Mover.
the mover would actually put in there that a report come back with after so a certain time, a year, whatever that is, come back and give us how it is working towards moving there. Just so we have a little more information from our user groups that are using the facilities.
That would be
Are you
fine.
okay with that friendly amendment? And the seconder is okay with that?
Fine with that. Then
Thank you. Any discussion to the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. On to item 10.3, the procurement update, and that's over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For council is report treasurer 2025-10, which is the purchasing update for April 2025. The motion or the recommendation is to purchase a large storage tank for the public works vehicles from Husky Farm Equipment Limited. The total cost related to the water storage tank, which includes the pump purchase, is $36,161.74. Public Works Manager is estimating $5,000 on the trade for the existing tank. There was a $30,000 budget for this project, which results in an overage on this purchase of $1,161.74. This will be funded through the Public Works operating budget for equipment. Open any questions. And I believe the Public Works Manager may be on the line if there's any questions specific to the tank.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Any questions on the report of staff? Councilor Watt?
Just one for me, please. Does this price include installing it on the truck, or is that something we undertake? I don't need the answer right now.
He's like, who are you saying that?
Oh, okay. of the shafts?
I can respond to that through the mayor, to Councillor Watt. Yes, it does include installation. We will be purchasing the pump from another vendor. We will just provide that at the time of the installation, and that price does include install on the vehicle.
Any other questions of staff? Seeing nothing, we'll take a motion. Deputy Mayor Nelson,
Also move the recommendation.
who would like to second that? Councillor Report, any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Condon, for your attendance. On to item 10.4, 2024 Building Department Reserve Transfer. Mr. Kramer, back over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In front of you is report treasurer 2025-11 regarding 2024 building department reserve transfer. At the last council meeting, there was a report presented. And when we were reviewing and preparing the minutes for that meeting, we observed that the recommendation to complete a transfer from the reserve, from the building reserve to fund the building deficit was not made and was not passed. I'll take responsibility for that. I think in speaking to the report, I think I said we just need you to receive it, and I overlooked that we do need that recommendation made. So this report is to formally get that recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kramer. So a housekeeping item, any questions? Somebody like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion
Councillor
to follow
Johnston.
the recommendation.
And
I will second.
Councillor Watt will second that. Thank you very much. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. On to item 10.5, request to stop up those sell it out of road allowance or road southeast of White Lake. Thank you, Councillor Johnson, stepping out of the room. Make note of that for the minutes. And Madam Clerk, this is your report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, just making my note here. So the report that's before you, is regarding a request that staff have received to stop up and close an unopened road in concession 6, which is believed to travel to the southwest through lots 22, 23, and 24 in the Douro ward. This unopened road is set out in bylaw 351, 1875, a copy of which was attached to the report, using chain and link measurements, but it has not been surveyed using modern methods. The approximate location of the unopened road is shown on an attached GIS map. The township's policy T6, which is also attached, provides that requests of this nature be forwarded to council for direction on whether to proceed with the circulation of the request to solicit input from adjacent property owners, as well as stakeholders such as the County of Peterborough, Hydro One, Autonomy Region Conservation Authority, and any others who may have an interest or concern with the request. The request is from Mr. Boyce and Mrs. Johnson, and that document is also attached to the report, and they are aware of the policy.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. It looks just like everybody's gone down here. Like, any questions of staff from council? Questions? No questions? Deputy Mayor?
I don't really have any questions, but I got a few comments if you'll entertain me, Madam Mayor. This road allowance has been in place, as our clerk said, since 1875. And we also have a policy in place about stopping up and closing road allowance. Whether it doesn't really matter whether how much it's used, it was put in place for the public, and as all of our road allowances in our township, and we have lots of road allowances in our township that are unopened, and still serve the public, and people otherwise would be landlocked to get to properties because of unopened road allowances. So we not only have to look at this section of road that other users actually use to get to their properties, and by stopping up and closing even part of it, then people then have to travel all the way around to the other side to get to their property. And of course, it goes through to be a public, it is a public process to stop up and close it. So a lot of people will come forward. So there's no point in I feel there's no point in addressing this any further. It is a road allowance. It's been that way since 1875. And we need to keep it as a road allowance, even though it hasn't been surveyed. And if anybody wants to dispute that, maybe it's not up to the township to spend funds on surveying it. It is there, it's road travel. And in my opinion, and again, this is my opinion, it's up to council, but my opinion is that even if this went to court, there's been all kinds of court cases where the road travel is basically belongs to the municipality. And there's all kinds of court stuff with that, but it is the townships, and that is up to anybody else that wanted to dispute that, to spend the money to have it surveyed and say it's not where it's supposed to be. And then they can move the trail or move the road loans. But anyways, there's all kinds of other users. There's not only the snowmobile club here tonight that made a presentation. There's actually, I know for a fact, there's all kinds of horses, that people with horses that use this trail on a regular basis, walkers, other people to get to their properties, further different other ways or other places off of this rollout that they go to get to their property. So that's my comments, and I just want council to be aware of that.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council? If not, I'll entertain some kind of motion.
I'd be willing to make a motion
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
that we don't entertain stopping up and closing this rollouts. What else? What else can you say? That we don't entertain stopping up and closing the rollouts, and we stick with our policy about keeping inmate our unopened rollouts.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, and we want to second that motion. Councillor Watt will second that. Any discussion on the motion? Oh, Madam Clerk.
Madam Mayor, can I just confirm with the mover and the seconder about the motion?
Of course.
So to Deputy Mayor, was the intention of the motion to receive the report and let the requesters know that the request will not be entertained and their policy will be followed?
Correct. Yes, correct.
Seconder, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion on motion? Councillor Watt.
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. Yeah, and I know we do get these requests all the time, so on and so forth. This road does get used a lot. I've used it since 1969 when a year after I moved here with my family, and I still to this day, if I have a snowmobile I can use to go through. I have encountered horses and everything through there. If perchance there was another alternative route through, to close this one up and open another one kind of like that, but it would still have to be in the township's name. Like, we don't want to give up the rights to have, so if it was moved over, 1,000 feet, 100 feet, 10 feet, whatever thing like that, to appease the applicants, but still have the ownership of the township, because we still have to maintain that right through for people that have properties in there that need to bypass it. So they don't want to go all the way around, 20 miles out of their way to get back into the property. And being back there myself, there is a waterway goes through. Maybe there's not water in a lot, but it's a very, very deep ditch comes up. I think the snowmobile club has a bridge across, but it wouldn't be possible for automobiles when I make that. So they would still, anybody on this side of that waterway bridge connect would not have access to their property anymore. So with that being said, that would be the only way I'd be able to support it, would be if we had an alternative route, which I don't think is possible, but you never know.
Okay, Councillor Watt, thank you. Councillor Brevoort.
Thank you, Mayor Watson, through you. Just reading staff's report here, I was a little bit under the intention that the purpose of this was to discuss whether we have staff initiate a public consultation process for this request. That was my understanding, and it feels like the motion here maybe jumps ahead of that and doesn't address that concern, because I think they're two different concerns.
Councillor, so we do have a motion that's on the floor right now. Certainly any member of council can make a motion on a report. Whether or not that goes with or against the recommendation or the intent of the report is another story. But if you have a question that you want to perhaps ask the clerk about the motion or any clarification, but we do have a motion on the floor, so we're looking to speak to the motion specifically.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Watt, you look like you want to say something.
I do, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just want to be absolutely clear in this. So if the request comes to council, and I think, Adam, and I could stand to be corrected here, if council decides not to go ahead with it, then we don't do the public, and we don't spend all the time and expense to go through it. If council says, yes, let's do it, then we go with that process. But if council says, no, we don't want to entertain this request, then that's the end of it right there. So that's basically what the motion is like.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Any more discussion on the motion? If not, I'll weigh in on this. To your point, Councillor Watt, you know, the procedure for policy T6 says that all requests, you know, it should be the clear direction of council that they should be generally discouraged, requests to close roads, and also that request for closure of any road allowance along or leading up to water will not be considered. I also believe that people should have a fair kick at the can and a fair process. I think that this one in particular is bound to be contentious. There's a lot of users who are using the road or the road allowance reportedly, but you know, we do have the ability as council to even determine whether or not we enter into or we allow applicants or requesters to enter into that process. And I agree, Deputy Mayor, that, you know, going through the process is a long and protracted process in and of itself, and you know, may still end up exactly where we are today, where there's a lot of opposition and people don't want to, and council doesn't want to move forward with it. But I certainly do think that a public process is, any applicant, anybody who brings something forward should be able to go through a public process. So for that reason, I will be supporting the motion, and I fully expect that the community, I anticipate the community to come forward at the broader side to share, you know, their concerns, and we'll deal with it at that point in time should the motion pass. So with that, I will call for the vote. All in favor? And that motion fails. So now we need another motion. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Staff do need direction on this. We can't move one way or the other without direction from council.
Understood. So Councillor Brevoort.
Thank you, Mayor Watson. Through you, I would like to make a motion that we instruct staff to begin the consultation process and to reach out to the applicants, making them aware that they're responsible for the costs associated with that process.
Okay.
And should they choose to not want to proceed, then staff has that discretion as well.
Understood. Thank you, Councillor Brevoort. Are you seconding?
No,
Okay.
no, I just have a comment.
We'll hold on a second. People can speak to the motion. Who would like to second that motion? I'm looking at you because Deputy Mayor didn't second it. If you don't, I'll rescind the chair and second it. And I'm not sure the spot.
Switch spots.
We have to switch spots, but if you're not going to second it, I will second that motion.
Okay.
All right, the motion is seconded. Deputy Mayor, your comments.
Yep. My comment is,
this is already an existing road. Why are we wasting the applicant's time with a process? And I know the policy outlines that, but why are we wasting staff's time and the applicant's time? And when, if the decision is going to be the exact same thing at the end of the process, and I've already heard long, when the snowmobile trail got closed off, believe me, my phone rang. And I got a lot of people that know that this is a road launch. And why is the road launch closed off? So I can assure you that most people out there are against it, and most people are against closing up road launches. It's like I've got an unopened road launch past my place. Should I go down and put a gate on it, I guess, and say nobody's allowed to go down there? I don't think so. So be careful of what you wish for. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Any other comments on motion, Councillor Report?
Thank you, Mayor Watson, through you. I can definitely empathize with the Deputy Mayor's comments regarding unopened road allowances, wanting to keep those in the public's hand, and how the unopened road is being used right now. I get that, but as Mayor Watson did say, it's also in our public policy there too, that if the applicant so wishes to have a consultation and they're willing to forego the time and expense, which could be significant, that's their decision. And we have had many people from the community asking for council to listen more to constituents and give people the opportunity to speak. And quite frankly, here's a good opportunity for people to do exactly that.
Thank you, Councillor Report. Any other comments on the motion? Councillor Watkins.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'm just reading the policy here. It says if council does consider the closure, then it goes to a public process. But then it says later on here, if the council does not proceed, the decision is final. So it does give the option in the policy to end it right here and not go through that whole situation if we're not going to get a consensus on it. But it doesn't look like we're going to.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. I hear your comments, and I'll speak to the motion. I don't feel good ever about stopping up access that abuts into water, and there's some rare circumstances where it makes sense. I'm not saying this one makes sense, but we do have an applicant who's come forward, or a requester who's come forward. I fully welcome, I expect and welcome opposition on this. But if they want to go through the process, then, that's what I believe, just from a pure democratic standpoint, that people should be able to go through that. I mean, at the end of the day, I'll be honest, I probably won't support it, right? And I've had, some good time to consider this over the course of the weekend, so Deputy Mayor, again, I know you say, what's the point of going through this if it's going to fail at the end? But I think that that's up to the requester to determine and weigh, and us as council to allow people to be part of that process and engage. So that's why I'm supporting the motion. And with that, Councillor Watt.
Just to clarify, so if we do go through all this process and it comes back to council and we vote again and it's 2-2, what happens then?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Watt, if the vote is 2-2, the vote fails, and no one being. It would depend what the vote is on.
Right.
But if you only had 2 members vote and there's only 4 members at the table, that is a failed vote.
Could the clerk read the policy, because the policy is not properly being followed?
So questions from the gallery, given the nature of this meeting, isn't public. But from a policy standpoint, policy T6, reading the entire policy wouldn't necessarily make sense. Madam Clerk, perhaps you can speak to just the policy in general and how it applies or doesn't apply in this particular situation.
Sure, Madam Mayor. So the policy is policy T6. It's been in place since 2010. The policy provides a clearly defined method for the processing of requests for road allowance closures. In the policy, there is a procedure section. It outlines all the different steps. There's not very many, so I can read them quite quickly if you wish.
Sure, Madam Clerk, please.
So, all requests for closure of unopened, unused road allowances shall be made in writing to council, giving details of the allowance to be closed and the reasons requesting such. It shall be a clear direction of council that requests for road allowance closures be generally discouraged. Requests for closures of any road allowance along or leading up to water will not be considered. If council does consider the closure of any allowance, the municipality shall, before making any commitment on the closure, notify all property owners within 1,000 feet of the request and ask for input and or objections. If after this circulation, no objections are received, council wishes to proceed, the person making the request will be required to place on deposit with the township $2,600 prior to the process commencing. The person making the request shall be responsible for all municipal and other costs involved in the closure. And if the $2,600 is insufficient, shall be requested to provide additional funds to cover the total cost. If objections are received to the closure, council shall hear the objections and decide whether such are valid and whether to proceed with the closure proceedings. If council decides not to proceed, their decision is final and no closure request of a similar nature shall be considered for a 1-year period thereafter, at which time, if the request is resubmitted, notification of the property owners within 1,000 feet shall again take place. If the road allowance is closed and to be deeded to, if the road allowance is to be closed and to be deeded to the adjacent property owner or owners, the sale price shall be at fair market value as established by someone qualified to provide, at a minimum, an opinion of the value of the property to be sold, and all requests shall be dealt with at the discretion of council.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk, for that. Just a clarification on the policy or the procedure rather, the 1,000 feet notice that's given, that is after council in theory decides to move forward with a process.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is correct. The staff would not undertake a notice without council's direction.
Understood. Thank you very much. Okay, looking to council, I think we've gone over this. We've got a motion that's been made and seconded. So at this point, I will call for the vote. All in favor? And that motion fails. So who wants to take another kick in the can on a motion? Or do we defer it to another meeting with a request for more information?
Is council considering the closure? Because that's the only point under which you would move forward past bullet point 4.
So I appreciate your comment, but this is not a meeting for the public to speak at. So council's going to be sorting through how to proceed on this. Deputy Mayor?
I'd like the clerk to read off the when the motion's defeated, what's the outcome? I think it's pretty clear. It's failed.
In our
It's done.
procedural?
Yes, in our procedural.
In our
file.
procedural.
I think it's done.
Madam Clerk?
I'll just need one moment.
Yes, of course.
Sorry, Martina.
Tom, didn't you say the road lines goes along water? Because it clearly says that it cannot be stopped up if it goes along water. He said there's a bridge.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, for the delay.
That's okay.
I've gone through the procedural bylaw. The procedural bylaw doesn't speak to this exact circumstance, but the procedural bylaw does speak about quorum and how many votes you need to have a motion pass, which is the majority. So if you have 4 people at the table, you need 3 people to vote in support of a motion. We have not achieved a majority vote on this matter, which means the various motions that have been passed have all failed. I would be of the opinion that because these motions have all failed, the request is not being entertained by council.
Okay. So unless there's anybody else who wants to take a stab at this at council, it looks like, or as a motion, it looks like the motion or the request fails. I thought it actually gets carried forward to the next meeting, so I appreciate that clarification. Thank you, Madam Clerk. And so we will move on. Sorry, Councilor Johnson, yeah, she was clear, Councilor Johnson. Okay, so we are moving on to item 10.6, fire protection grant top-up payment, and Madam Clerk or Chief, who's going to take this one? You're both, I got both your names on this, so I don't know.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wrote this report on behalf of the chief as he was dealing with emergency matters. In September of 2024, the fire department applied for a fire protection grant with the province of Ontario. This grant is designed to support firefighter cancer prevention programs. In March of 2025, the township was alerted that the fire department would be receiving $32,921.80 from the grant. These funds are going to be used to purchase particulate style hoods for decontamination at the scene, followed by an advanced cleaning at the fire station. Staff were able to enter into the funding agreement with the province under Section 4 of the Delegated Powers and Duties bylaw. The department has recently received a letter from the Office of the Fire Marshal alerting us to a small amount of additional funds being granted to the department. Those funds are in the amount of $361.73. For the township and the department specifically, to receive these funds, we do need a resolution of council to allow us to sign an additional grant. Sorry, a new transfer payment agreement.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Any questions of staff on the report, on the motion, recommendation? Councilor Watt?
Motion to follow recommendation.
All right. You want to second that? Deputy Mayor Nelson? Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Report, your hand was up. Was that just a seconded or?
That was just a seconded, yes.
Seeing that, no discussion, all in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. On to item 10.7, 2025 storm update. CEO Davis, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Watson. So my report, I think, is relatively straightforward, but I wanted to sort of, really what we're trying to do is provide an update to council on, the state of emergency and why we call it the state of emergency and what we've done, as a result. So as you all are members of council are aware, Friday, March 28th, we assessed the weather that was coming in this weekend, and to get in advance of that, we declared a particular, we made a declaration of a significant weather event. We did get that weather event, and we ultimately decided on Sunday, the March 30th, in consultation with the fire chief, we did declare a state of emergency. At that time, most of our roads were impassable as well. There was widespread reports that there was no hydroelectric power to any of the properties within our community, and so we felt very justified in calling a state of emergency. Along with ourselves calling it a state of emergency, I would note that the county of Peterborough declared a state of emergency, and every other township within our lower tier jurisdiction did as well. When we're confronted with an emergency, we look at these issues generally in an order of priority. Certainly overriding all of the decisions that we make, we try to bring forward a concern for human health and safety, and that is the lens under which we work from. My report sort of lays out our response to the state of emergency and the challenges we had within the community. I would say that our first priority or sort of the first priority of the township is always to open emergency access. And what I mean by that is all roads needed to be reopened first so that emergency vehicles could respond to any potential health or property emergency within the township before we made the roads completely passable for automotive traffic. Once we were able to achieve that, and that was done, as I laid out in the report, between our volunteer firefighters, our public works department, and I'll speak to some more things that we did after. Second order of priority is to establish or recognize and assess community safety. And really what we're doing is looking for places within our community that are public that can provide the various services that are required, whether that's a warming center or warmth, electricity to activate or charge, communications devices, areas for personal hygiene. And so in our initial assessments on March 30th and the next day, we recognized that the city of Peterborough had quite a robust program in place, as well as the Norwood Arena. And so we partnered or worked within the confines of that. I also would note that there was no power to any of the municipal facilities at that time. And so, and all other lower tier or townships also took advantage of those opportunities. Once we made that assessment, we were able to bring generated power to town hall here, which is what we opened initially. And then I would like to note that working in partnership with the library, we were able to open a second location once the library received their power back in Douro. And that actually facilitated public spaces for members of our community to go to should they require charging, warmth, or a place to work. And both places were utilized, but not to great effect, certainly. The third thing that we did is then we started to look at public property damage and assess our public facilities and properties. What I did note in the report is that in doing that assessment, what we noticed were our properties were free, other than being disconnected from hydroelectric power and or communications. So bell lines were rendered ineffective. The rest of the buildings didn't receive any substantial amount of damage. Trees came down on them. We didn't have any sort of significant degree of damage. However, there is some minor repairs required, and I will, in the course of the emergency, one of our alternative emergency operations center is up in Donwood, the fire station 1 in Donwood, it has a long-standing generator that provides generator power, and certainly it's one of the first things that's triggered when we go into a state of emergency, so they can set that up as an operations center. That generator worked for a period of time and is not a young generator. It's about 20 years old, which is beyond its lifespan. It ultimately failed and had to be replaced as we went through the emergency. Which is to be expected from time to time. What I would also say is that when we looked at the properties in substantial damage, I would note that 3 of our parks sustained what we would classify as substantial enough damage that they need to be closed because they pose a threat or concern to human safety. The immediate park just outside town hall had a number of limbs down that were quickly removed. The Warsaw Fire Hall playground was closed for a period of time because of trees coming down. Both of those 2 spaces have been worked on and reopened. The Robert Johnson Echo Forest Trail is another one where we received a substantial amount of tree fall. That remains closed to date. It is on the list of work that we need to do to get it to reopen. Once we've gone through those three priority areas, then we move to basically looking or working through cleanup, and starts and continues now, both from the perspective of the township on public property and to support in ways that we traditionally do our residents on private property. And so the support to the general public and to the private challenges that they have with cleanup. Peterborough County has announced relatively quickly that they were opening some of the works yards, and I would note that the Douro Works Yard is open and receiving for people to drop off brush and wood. That continues. I was there, I happened to be there on Sunday, and it was brisk. The business going through it is open, continues to be open 24 hours a day. It's not gated, so you can go in and drop your stuff off. The county has indicated, they had initially indicated that facility was to close on April 14th. It's now, they've now announced that it's to remain open until April 22nd. We have no updates at this time as to whether it will be extended beyond that. Secondarily, the city of Peterborough opened the transfer station on Bensford Road to more hours and to county residents. And so that is another location. I can't suggest how much material has gone through that location at this stage, specifically dedicated to Douro-Dummer. However, that is another opportunity. And then thirdly, our own transfer station at Halls Glen has been operating. So we've opened it, operated it on extra days with extra hours. And in 2 incidences, we are welcoming brush and wood to be dropped off at no charge. And we are also allowing for spoiled food to be delivered or dropped off, and we're not charging for that. We are charging just for regular household garbage at this time. Our intention is to continue to keep that open for a longer period of time, certainly beyond April 22nd at this particular stage. As we start to work our way through cleanup on roads and our public spaces, what I would note is that we had a full deployment of staff to work on the roads. We redeployed staff across departments to provide assistance. So for example, our recreation facility staff who work in our parks are skilled and have been trained in using wood chippers and chainsaws. And so we redirected staff from the recreation side to the road side, recognizing that getting our roads open was of paramount importance. We also contracted a local third-party business and have been working with them, who have trained and qualified staff to do the same work, and they continue to do that work. I would note that the Manager of Public Works commented to me today that we are beyond the halfway point now, 2 weeks after the event, and we anticipate more work to come. However, we have also responsibilities related to road maintenance standards that we have to now start to diverse some of our resources towards. Also, in order to provide some assistance, so traditionally when we bring our summer students back in the various departments, the start date is usually set for the beginning of May. I authorize the ability to bring that staff back as soon as possible. And so we have had of our 4 summer students that provide our outside workers or provide assistance either to recreation facilities or our public works division department, sorry. All 4 of those students have come back early. Some of them are back full-time or seasonally back full-time now. Some of them are finishing up exams at the university and helping us while they're working their way through that. So I want to thank them all for agreeing to come back earlier to provide the assistance that we require. There is a program, and I referenced that program in the report. So the province, when we declare a state of emergency, the Office of Emergency Services responds to us as a municipality, and they've indicated or they've opened what they call the MDRAP program, which I think is an acronym that means Municipal Disaster Relief Assistance Program, if I'm not mistaken. I looked to the treasurer to confirm.
Very close, Municipal Disaster Recovery Assistance.
Amazing. So what I would note is that is open. The requirement from the township's perspective to qualify for that proposal is 3% of our annual operating budget needs to be spent in a very confined or very specified way around emergency services. For those interested, 3% of our annual operating budget is $221,000 annually. I can say, to date, I can give you an update as to what we've spent. Or I can maybe turn it over to Treasurer. He probably has it up on his screen. There is a program that the province also has to assist residential costs related to disaster assistance or disaster recovery assistance. That program has not been activated at the province at this stage. However, it was enacted after the derecho in 2022, and we anticipate that it will be, but we have not heard anything from the province. The Treasurer, would you mind giving us an update as to what our expenditures are today, please?
Mayor, so I just want to really highlight that most of these costs are estimates. We do not have invoices for a lot of these costs at this point. We did run payroll as of today, and we were able to determine the overtime costs that have been incurred. So those are known in terms of overtime as up till this past Saturday. That's the end of our pay period. So again, all estimates, we have incurred $105,000, and we estimated another $58,000 for a total of $163,000. That does put us in a shortfall for qualifying for the MDRA program of about $58,000. Again, these numbers could swing either way still. This is as of this afternoon, sitting down with each manager and coming up with some estimates based on what the information we have as of today.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. So, I mean, certainly we will continue to recover. There will be more, I would imagine we'll bring another report at some point. I have asked the fire chief to join us today to provide any comments or answers to any of your questions. However, before we get into the question period, and I wrap this up, I would like to provide a very personal, heartfelt thank you to the following members of our staff. I would like to thank the fire chief, Chuck Pedersen, for his tireless work in chairing the Emergency Management Committee and all the work that he's done, along with his team, our volunteer deputy chief, Derek Huffman, and Jessica MacArthur, our staff resource in that department, and all of the volunteer firefighters who have given their time, effort, energy to make this, in the initial response period, and as they continue to monitor and we get ourselves out of this issue. I would also like to thank Jay Condon and Tim Hendren and all the public works staff for their responsiveness to these challenges. I would also like to thank Michael Mood and Steve Trenham and the recreation facility staff for the work that they've done. And I think it would be remiss if I didn't thank all of the staff that work at Town Hall. I recognize that many of our staff members live within either the Township of Douro-Dummer or a neighboring community, and all of those communities were affected without power, and every single one of them came to work every single day while we were going through this, while we've been going through this, whether they had power or not. Whether they had to find alternative places to shower or not. And so I think that's important that we recognize all of those individuals for all the hard work that they've done. And I want to pass on, I also recognize the residents in this community. I've only been part of staff for just over 5 months now, but I would recognize I'm extremely blown away by the level of resilience of the community and how they persevered their way through it. I know that we are not at 100% hydro yet. We are, according to Hydro One, at 99.6%. I would like to find a 0.4%, but I suspect there's a lot of them are seasonal residents at this point. That is our report and an update on the storm. I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
Thank you, CAO Davis, and I echo your sentiment in thanks and appreciation to our staff. Certainly over the last couple of weeks, I've been in the office many times and having conversations with all of the individuals that you've named by name or by department, and their resilience and dedication to making sure that the township was open for business as best as we could under the circumstance was notable. And I personally appreciate all of them, including yourself. Todd, thank you for being here to help. Council, over to you with any questions that you may have on the report, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Just echo the same sentiments. Thank you very much for all staff, fire department, public works, office staff, you included, Todd, and everybody, and the mayor for setting up coming in and setting it up, and when it's not very handy and you have no hydro at home, and just think about all the dedication to our township, and so thank you very much for that. That goes a long ways, and it shows just, and even our other townships and the countywide, I mean, even countywide, how much, I've never seen a devastation like this in my life. My mom's 90 years old, and she told me, I took her for a drive, and she said, "Oh my God, Harold, would never witnessed this in 90 years of her life." So anyways, so thanks for all your dedication to all the staff and the hydro workers as well that got us back on the line, the boots on the ground that did what they needed to do to come through. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, same sentiments as everyone else. Thank you to everyone that helped out through this and persevered and even those that are still struggling. I do have one question. We have a lot of private roads in our township, and accessibility for Chocolate Fire Department, for ambulances, that type of thing. Do we have any kind of a setup that when something like this happens, or when there's a problem, when there's a major snowstorm like that they get a notice, like road associations or cottage associations, something like that, and say, hey, you know what? We realize that this is a major happening, stuff like that, but your first concern has to be to get these roads open for emergency services. So if somebody's cutting down a tree in the cottage and it hits them in the head, we want to be in there with the right people to get in there. So do we have something like that set up to kind of prompt them along? It's not our business to tell them what to do, but it should be their business to get that done priority one.
I'll defer to the fire chief because he manages that stuff on a regular basis.
Through the mayor to Councilor Watt. So we have a bylaws that protect us on private roads because we're not overall responsible for that. So our first priorities are going to be the rest of the roads, but obviously if we get called, which we've had before, we would have to cut our way in. That's obviously not the most direct and fastest way to get there. So after the initial assessment was done, there's so many people that are living here more often than just seasonal. So I think the notification, we don't have anything really official to reach out, but I can tell you that from the events that we've had, they're on it pretty quickly. And when we went up in there we did an assessment to try to get, I think we had 19 roads that were impassable due to wires. So we included, and that was including private roads. And when we went out to do those assessments, they had made really good headway at opening those up. And then we gave that list to Hydro, and they went out and got to that because the priority again was emergency access. We weren't looking for the cleanup, but it was just emergency access in the event that someone needed help. So that went pretty smoothly. And yeah, we're pleasantly surprised at how much work that the private industry or the private road associations did on getting that opened up as quickly as I did. So it kind of answers your question, but I think we didn't come across any that was like, obviously nobody here knows that their road is closed because all the roads were being worked on.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Johnston.
Well, we've invested, I did, and also thank everybody, and even neighbors with neighbors. You know, it's very important. In a small community, there's where you see your real neighbors. You know, like other areas where people don't even talk to each other. In an area like what we've got, we want to be very thankful for the neighbors that help each other. And again, for all the staff and everything they've done. I guess one question I got asked, is the Douro Park, closed? You know,
Through the mayor, to Councilor Johnson, I believe that Douro Park is seasonally closed, if I'm not, was that not the one? Oh, yes, that park will be open on. We're working on that one right away to make sure that it is open for the Easter egg hunt on Saturday.
that's what I want to know.
And so, I don't wanna hijack this. This is an announcement for tomorrow, but I'm happy to, you know, we have people in the gallery today. There is an Easter egg hunt at 11 sharp.
I'm just gonna say that.
On April 19th, which is this Saturday. And Mr. Mood has asked me to invite the public, but also members of council if they'd like to join us, and we're hopeful that I think the mayor traditionally comes, and I believe I'm hopeful she'll be there, so. That's not storm related, that's Easter related.
Only my family,
The only reason I was asking is that I didn't realize that, but because I thought maybe we'd rather let the Easter Bunny know.
I know.
Any other comments or questions from council? If not, I'm gonna go on a bit of a soapbox here, guys, and I hope you'll give me a little bit of latitude on this. I echo the sentiment that we've all talked about, thanks. You know, the storm hit a mark on our community, not just in Douro-Dummer, but the broader region. Not only in its physical damage, but how it exposed vulnerabilities in our systems and vulnerabilities in our partnerships. And I want to talk a little bit about that because as mayor, I believe it's important that we speak clearly and respectfully so that we can resolve what worked and what didn't. But again, first and foremost, I do extend my deepest appreciation for the hydro line front through, like the feet on the street, the hydro crews, local and outside of the region. These individuals showed up for our residents and they showed up large. They worked long hours, of course, in freezing rain and wind and difficult terrain. And their commitment and skill is not only visible, but very vital to our community. So on behalf of the township, I do extend my sincerest thanks to our hydro crews who are out there doing the work. However, while the work on the ground was commendable, the experience at the operations level was far from acceptable, in my opinion, and having sit at the emergency operations centers meetings and speaking with other mayors and our MPP and even the premier when he was here on Sunday. We were getting inconsistent and often inaccurate communication between Hydro One and the township officials, which made it nearly impossible to make timely and informed decisions on things like how long do we keep the warming rooms open, for example. We weren't given reliable data about outages, so we didn't know how many people had hydro or didn't within our own community. Or properties, whether they were seasonal habited properties versus year-round properties where we knew we needed to prioritize, which is all critical information for rural communities like ours. We're still, and residents probably saw this, public messaging from Hydro One frequently conflicted with what was actually happening. Residents were confused, they were frustrated, in some cases misled about what was going on the street and the role that the township was playing in the response. Our township, as an example, we made offers of support for volunteer firefighters to help and do an assessment of the roads. They initially rejected that. Then they asked us to do that. So we did that. The volunteer firefighters went out. And then it's my understanding we handed that in and they said, no, thanks, we don't need that after all. But then they asked us for it again and volunteers had to go back out and reassess. Which is an absolute duplication of efforts and waste of resources, all at a critical and emergent time when we're trying to restore services and keep our residents safe. So this back and forth put undue strain on already stretched local resources, but it also eroded public trust in how we're handling disaster type situations. Decision making, we discovered late in the game, it seemed, from Hydro One. was severely hampered because of outdated mapping that they have. They're using maps that date back to the early 2000s, pre-amalgamation. They didn't even know Dummer Township existed. They had Trent Lakes, which when talking to the mayor there, the entire municipality was still out of hydro, as it seemed, but they had one outage. It's like the whole township maybe, but so the mapping was inaccurate that they were going, which makes, like that accurate mapping isn't a luxury, it's a necessity when we're dealing with these situations. So as severe weather events become more common, we just remember like yesterday, the derecho, it seems, the status quo simply isn't good enough, and rural communities like Douro-Dummer need and deserve a better standard of coordination. So I have a motion that I'll read. Hopefully my colleagues will move and second it. But I'm calling on Hydro One to commit to a formal debrief. We need to sit down, review their response, and create a plan for doing better next time, because there will be a next time. So I want to ensure that we are, as a municipality, prepared for it. Again, I reiterate our ground crews. They did their part. But now it's time for the leadership and systems to rise up to that same standard. So my motion as drafted, whereas the recent ice storm that severely impacted the Township of Douro-Dummer and the subsequent response from Hydro One, and whereas there is a need to address key areas of concern with service provided by Hydro One during and after the storm to enhance further operations and communications between the Township and Hydro One. And whereas the township is facing an increased number of severe storms leading to prolonged electricity outages and highlighting the urgent need for improved infrastructure resilience. And whereas the township extends its appreciation for the diligent efforts of ground crews, both local and those deployed from distant areas who work tirelessly under challenging conditions. And whereas communication between Hydro One and Douro-Dummer officials and emergency staff was inconsistent, oftentimes inaccurate, and was exacerbated by the dissemination of misinformation to the public regarding the township's support or obstruction of on-the-ground recovery operations. And whereas despite the Township of Douro-Dummer offering services to aid recovery operations, these offers were initially declined. When services were offered a second time, the service and information provided to the township was mismanaged by Hydro One, and required repetition, leading to a waste of fire department resources and the efforts of volunteer firefighters. And whereas decision-making was hindered by Hydro One's resilience on outdated mapping from the early 2000s, which reduced efficiency and efficacy of the recovery operations. So therefore, be it resolved that the township formally requests that Hydro One undertake a comprehensive debriefing session to create a collaborative approach to review the storm response, lessons learned, and enact strategic improvements in storm response protocols and communication channels. And finally, that this resolution be circulated to our MPP, the Honorable Stephen Lecce, who's the Ministry of Energy and Mines, and the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario. So that is my motion. Deputy Mayor? You'll make that motion, you'll move that motion? That's my draft motion.
I will, move the motion or second the motion, or you want me to second or move?
Either one.
I have something else to add to that, if I might, just from other communications that I've had with people around the township. And one of them is, internet service. Getting, different stuff happening with the internet. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. Then I hear that, they didn't even have backup to provide service to the internet towers. So I think in the debrief that would be very useful to have some of the players in rural roots and NextCom involved in that debrief. It might be a good information session for that. And another one was Bell Telephone with people that don't have phones, cell phones. Cell phones didn't work anyways, which we kind of know that in a bad storm, but with permanent lines, when the permanent lines were down, people had nothing. And when they called Bell to ask them to, or when their service would be provided, they were landlines, they told them to go buy a telephone, go buy a cell phone. That's not really a good response, in my opinion. Sorry, they have Bell lines within this province, and they've had landlines. They used to tell us I remember a time when they told us, don't rely on cell phones in an emergency. That's why everybody should have a landline for an emergency. So I think that they need to be included in our parameter, just my suggestion. Madam, I know, Madam Mayor, you wrote that up and I agree with it, but I would like to add them to the debrief that I think some questions need to be answered. In my,
I agree, wholeheartedly. Because of the, I'm just thinking out loud, because of the wording of the motion is very specific on what I've drafted as it relates to Hydro One, and it is in the jurisdiction and responsibility of the province. I wonder if we do this as one and then the communications bell, which is to a degree federally regulated,
Yeah.
and we work on all of those telecommunications.
sure, whatever way you want to handle that, but I'd like that to be included for sure.
Okay, all right, so Councillor Watt.
I'll second or do whichever you're.
You can.
Okay, so I am introducing the motion. Councillor Watt will second the motion.
Yes, I would.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion carries. Deputy Mayor Nelson, let's work on your motion about all the internet and telephone providers to do a debrief with them.
Yes.
Is that what you're looking for?
Absolutely, yeah.
Madam Clerk, you got that? Deputy Mayor has made that motion. Who would like to second that? Councillor Johnston. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? And that motion carries again. Thank you, CIO Davis. I think we just need a motion to receive the report. Councillor Watt, seconded by Councillor Report. Any discussion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Wonderful. Appreciate that. Okay, moving on to item number 11. We've got committee minutes and other reports. We've got the Peterborough County OPP Detachment Board minutes. We're looking for a motion to receive these minutes. Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Vervoort. Any discussion? All in favor? And that motion carries. Item 11.2, there's a budget letter to member municipalities where we're being asked to, all member municipalities are funding. So that's the budget presentation. Any questions on that? I can try and answer as vice chair of that board. Councillor Watt?
Just a quick question for me, and I think I'm reading right. So this budget is for your group, like it's for the board, for expenses through the whole year and any things they need. So each municipality will be putting in the same amount, and is the city included in that too, or do they not because they got their own police force?
The latter is true. So it is the lower tier municipalities that are working collectively with OPP exclusively. And those costs are divided up equally among those participating municipalities based on the regulation, the legislation that police forces are based on.
I'll do a motion to receive it and support it.
Yeah, that's probably what we need. Absolutely.
I'll second.
Deputy Mayor Nelson will second that. Any discussion on that? Just a question to our treasurer, Mr. Kramer. I believe that amount does fall below what we had already budgeted for within the 2025.
Madam Mayor, yes, that's correct. We had budgeted 15,000 in the absence of knowing what the final agreement would be.
Thank you for that clarification. All in favor? And that motion carries. And now on to bylaws. Bylaw 2025-13 for tax rates. Council?
Move.
Councillor Watson, by Councillor Johnston, all in favor? That motion carries. Item 13.2, which is bylaw 2025-14 to step up and close and sell portions of the Dummer 6th Line Road North, not to be confused with the request that we have today. Councillor Watt, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson, all in favor? That motion carries. Final bylaw 2025-15 to reline the 12th Line Road Dummer.
So
Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Vervoort. Any discussion? All in favor? And that motion carries. We have no reports from previous notice of motion. are there any notices of motion? Seeing nothing, announcements. We want to talk about the Easter egg hunt. I think we already did that this Saturday. Any other announcements from council? Seeing nothing else, we have no closed session, just our confirming bylaw. Deputy Mayor Nelson, seconded by Councillor Johnston, all in favor? That motion carries. We have our very next meeting is tomorrow with Committee of the Whole, starting at 10 o'clock. And then our regular council meeting will be May 6th at 5 o'clock. And just a motion to adjourn. Councillor Watt, your mic is on, and seconded by Councillor Vervoort, all in favor, and that motion carries.